Welcome back to the Motorcycle Fixer. Today we're going to continue on with our ZS155 rebuild. Today I'm just going to do a short video how to put the clutch back together and the gear change arm in. Okay. First thing we're going to do is we're going to put our gear arm, spring, retaining bolt, whatever you want to call it, I suppose. And we're going to do that left-handed so you can see. Going to screw that into there. Tighten it up with a 14mm. Just going to nip that up. Like so. And then we're going to put our gear change arm in. The spring there, between there, that's where the bolt, that retaining pin goes there. So push that down on there, just get through the seal on the other side. There we are. And we're going to push that, and this arm has to go underneath there, like so. So this arm then changes gears like that. Okay. Next we're going to fit our retaining arm, our roller. So this goes in there. So we're just going to screw this in into there. We're going to screw it in for a little bit first, and then we can set the spring. Okay. It's easier if you put the spring in a little bit first, and then tighten down the bolt until you get it there. You just push the spring over the bolt like that, and then we can tighten it up, because the bolt has got to go over there's like a step on the bolt. I don't know if you can see that, but as we tighten it up, we want to make sure that that spring isn't jammed between the step on the bolt and the casing, because it obviously won't be done properly. So there we are, that's that in place. Just want to nip it up. So we're going to make sure that this will still turn like that. So yeah, there we are. Right, so if we just take a look how that's positioned, you've got your gear change, gear selector arm on the bottom, and then you've got your roller on the top, and that's what holds the gear change drum in position then. So all of this still turns, that's all okay. Yeah, great. Next thing we're going to put on is the idle gear. Now this gear is the Kickstart idle gear. It spins on this shaft. When the Kickstart gear turns this idle gear, turns the clutch turns your crank. That's how you start the bike. There is a spacer on the bearing before you put the idle gear on. So you want to put that spacer on first, then your idle gear goes on, then the washer, and then this circlip. It's important that this idle gear spins freely and doesn't turn the gear shaft with it. So it has to be like that without turning the gear shaft. I'm just going to put the circlip on. When you put the circlip on, just make sure it clicks into place. All the way into the groove. There we are. See. Okay, so this is spinning freely on the end of the shaft. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to put our kickstart gear on here. So there's our kickstart gear. These teeth here drive these teeth through the idle gear, so inspect these teeth, and if these are all rounded then you probably need a new one, because if there's no edge on that then your kickstart won't catch and it won't start the bike. So we're going to fit our gear. You've got to make sure the mesh tooth, you might just have to pull the kickstart shaft away a little bit on the spring. But there we are, that's turning nice. So you can put our washer back on, and then our other circlip. Okay, here we are. All turns nice. Next up is our clutch basket. So I know a friend of mine has had problems with his clutch binding up after he's assembled these gears. So if when you put these back on, you can't do a full revolution on the clutch, turning it by hand, then you may have either the teeth on this damaged or the teeth on this one damaged. So make sure as you were going along everything is working. So as you can see, that's working. Now when I put the clutch on now, it should all turn. And there we are. So as I'm going along, I know each part of this is working, kind of because I'm checking everything turns and everything works as I'm going along, and that's the way to check it as you're going along. If you come to one part then that's not working and it's tightening up, then you know it's that part, or the part that's goes with it, you know they are the things that's wrong. Okay, so I think we need to put the crank gears on now before we tighten the clutch down. So I don't think we can get these past. So yeah, I'm just going to lift this up a minute, back up, put our crank gears on, and then we make sure all that turns now. As you can see, it's all free, so we know then that the crank and the clutch gears and the idle gear and the kickstart gear are all turning free and they're not jamming up at all, so we know the teeth are okay and they'll work. Need to put our, there's like a toothed retaining washer then on your clutch. basket. We should go down there. Then we've got to put our clutch pressure plate. We're going to put that in like so. Then we've got our clutch plates. If you've got new clutch plates, you should soak them in oil, 10W40. Soak them overnight before you put them back in. Or if they are used, then you should really soak them in. Like, just make sure they've got a good covering of oil on them. First one in is a fibre plate, and you've got steel. Another fibre plate, steel. Build them up. Try and keep these lugs in line, because it will help you when you put the retaining plate, outer retaining plate on. It can be a bit fiddly. So there we are, and the last one. I'm sorry I wasn't counting, but you can rewind and count if you like. Next thing then, we've got our outer plate. See, this is this little tabbed washer needs to go on the shaft, so that the washer that we've got on there needs to turn one tooth, and then this tab washer needs to go on the shaft, and then that stops the clutch basket, stops that washer from turning and the clutch basket coming off. So we've got to get that in. This is the benefit of stacking everything up, as this has to go back in, because as you can see, I forgot about that, but because it was all on the bench stacked up, then that reminded me that that's got to go in. I have actually had a bit of difficulty getting this to turn into place, and what I found was I need to lift it up a tiny bit and then turn it in, and that stops the clutch basket from coming off. And then this retainer, those pins, see if you can see there, those pins need to go down in the gaps that's left, so now you can't turn the washer, and that stops the clutch basket, as you can see, from coming off. So there we are. Right, we can drop this hopefully back in one go, most of it. Okay, and now it's time for our clutch center. You just want to jiggle that until it's all the way in. You want to be able to pick this up so that all your clutch plates are all tight together. If you lift the center up and you've got a big gap on the top there, then it's not fitted properly. So it all needs to go together, and those plates all need to be against the top when you lift it up. Okay. Now we can put our washers on. So first is this retaining washer. There we go. And then we've got this thrust washer. It says outside on the thrust washer, so you know which bit goes on the outside. That's right. And then we've got our castle nut. Now to tighten our clutch nut up. Some people have asked me how or where you can buy these from. I bought it off a auction site online. I think it was £12 or something. It got both sizes on there. One for the clutch, for the conrod nut, sorry, and then one for the clutch nut also. So you just put this on, and then I'm going to use my driver just to drive it. Watch your fingers. And then we bend these tabs over to stop the nut from undoing. So we're going to bend these tabs over into the slots on the castle nut. Not all of them will line up. You just need to do the ones that line up with the slots, and that'll stop it from undoing itself. So if I can get that one in there without hurting myself. There we are. Okay, so now that nut is not going to undo. So now we need to put our springs and our plate on. Now we're going to put our springs on. We've got our 4 clutch springs. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we got our clutch plate. Just going to tighten these up evenly, it says in the book, so that you don't put pressure on one side more than another. Just want to nip those up now. Should be able to hold the clutch and tighten them up. You don't want to over tighten these because it's into aluminium in the clutch. And if you strip the thread, then obviously you've got to fix it. So bearing turns nice there. Our clutch is all still working. Again, just make sure that all these plates have tightened up and there's no big gap at the top. You know that's okay then. So there we are. Next, we're going to put these, there's 2 little dowels for the oil pump. So there's one in there and one in there. We're going to put our spacer and our castle nut on the crank. So spacer first, then is another thrust washer. It says outside on it, which goes to the outside again. And then we're going to put our castle nut on there. Okay, so this castle nut, again we're going to use the castle nut that we bought. Obviously it's the other side this time, and this fits on there. I always get asked, or I have been asked, how you can undo or tighten these castle nuts up but without using the impact drill. the impact drill is the easiest thing to use, and on the one in the clutch you can't really stop anything from turning without, you know, you don't want to break the aluminium. There's only little thin aluminium rods in it and it's very difficult to hold them, so if you have got an impact spanner it makes it much easier. The one on the crank though, you can put something made of copper in between the gears to stop them from turning while you tighten it up with a ratchet, but it has to be copper because copper is softer than the steel. If you put something in it that's steel, you could break a tooth, or you could, well, you know, you'll break a tooth off, or you'll damage the teeth and then you'll end up, it won't turn over. So you can't put something copper between the teeth like this, and then get your ratchet and tighten up the nut. So we're just gonna nip it up, and there we are, that's tight enough. As you can see, it's damaged the end of the copper and not damaged the teeth, and that's exactly what we want. So there we are. Okay, now we're just going to fit the oil pump housing. Like so. Just make sure the teeth mesh with the ones on the crank. Might have to just take the screws out and put it on into the bottom gear. There we are. Then we're going to tighten these screws up. Two of them are longer for there and there because that's where the dowels go. So there we are. There we are. Okay, nearly finished. That's all we need to add now is our little plunger in the end of the crank. It's like an oil feed plunger. Basically, it's got a hole through the middle for the oil to come through with a spring on it. That needs to go in the end of the crank, and then that's it. This side of the engine is rebuilt. We're going to put a new gasket on, but then this is our casing. Fits down over. Clutch pushes the casing away, and that's it. That's the complete rebuild of the clutch side on our ZS155 engine. If you got this far through the video, then thanks for watching. Don't forget to smash the like button and please subscribe to the channel. Our next video is going to be building the stator plate and the flywheel on the other side. And then after that, I've got a BMW engine that I want to strip down to change the output shaft on as well. So that's coming up. Again, please subscribe because it does help the channel. Thanks very much. Bye.